the last episode as such was us just building your main construction of the gearbox. The day before I'd shimmed it all up, so I know my end floats are nice. So the next thing to do after you've done that is, obviously we've got new selector forks because these are damaged, so putting those back in and working out how to adjust them all. So the first thing to do is take one apart and put the new fork in, basically. Okay, so let's split one down, break it down. Right, so you've got little tab washers on those, yeah? Bastard. That's enough. Right, always do these one at a time. And what I generally tend to do is put them back with the same amount of shimming that's in them to start with, just to look at it and see what's going on, yeah?
Okay.
These can be very, very tight sometimes. Or they can be very, very loose. Take your pick. I tend to lay them out in order so you don't get muddled up, yeah? Nut's got a recess on one side so it can only go on one way. Lock washer. Shouldn't be any shims that side. The selector bar. Shim, shim. Chiroo. Shim. And then your fork. Which is, as you can see by that, is completely knackered. And these are our new forks. You can see there how out of shape and bent they are. So you just won't select gears properly with them. That only goes in one way, so it goes on the slot like that, yeah? So we knew that was facing us, so we're on the right way. We had shim, shim. He only goes one way, shim. So he's got shims that side as well, so you can literally move that either way to adjust your selector fork. I can't remember the exact dimensions of these at all, so I'll have to have a look in the book. That's enough. Now we'll do the other one. See, that one's assembled the other way round, so you don't have to take the whole thing out. There are your selector forks, yeah? Drop down into there, whichever way the wind blows. Right, they've got to face that way, because when your barrel roller's in there, yeah, they have to fit into those slots. So that physically won't go that way, so you know that that one sits in there, and that one that faces the other way sits in there. Okay, so that's your two selector arms. This one goes through that way. Okay. Right, so make sure, you don't have to make sure it's tight home that, but just make sure it's tapped in a little bit. That'll do. That'll only go in one way. See that hole there? You can wiggle that over that bit. These can be a right pain in the bum to get in. Okay, so easy in. Right, remember we were saying about that rubber washer before? Seals that. Take that off when you're adjusting these, because you've got to push this in and out all the time, yeah? You just break him out so you put your new one in. That goes that way round. Right. What we want to do is your indent ball that holds it in and out of gear, yeah? Just put him in and tighten him up loosely. The ball bearing goes in there and sits in those grooves, look. Yeah? Yeah. That's spring loaded, and that just holds it into gear very slightly. Just so long as it's holding it like that, yeah? So you can still turn it by hand. Yeah. Okay. So we're in first gear there. That's neutral. So now, because you could find that the shimming on the fingers is actually okay. It's just that all the end floats and everything were so knackered that it just won't fit because everything's flapping around. La, 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 la. Right, check clearances. Insert the thickness gauge between the driving dogs of the shifter clutch and the clutch gear. Overlap by 1/8 of an inch to determine the clearance between 283 thousandths of an inch and 288 thousandths of an inch. Right, inspect shifter clutch and low gear shifter fork. Locate the shifter cam in the neutral position so that the highest points of the high gear driving dogs overlap about 1/8 of an inch. Between that and that, which is around about 1/8 of an inch. Dress one end of a piece of metal down to 83 thousandths of an inch. This gauge will be for the shifter clutch and the clutch gear high gear measurement. From another piece of metal, dress one end down to 53 thou and one end down to 58 thou. This gauge will be for the shifter fork and low gear measurement. Right, okay. Right, so basically on your high gear, that gap there has to be about, what did it say, 83 thou, wasn't it, on the top one? This gauge will be for the shifter clutch high gear measurement, 83 thousandths of an inch. I don't think my slip gauges go that small. Right, I'm going to have to make some bits of metal up then. Another thing to do with these, I've done it before, is with welding rods. It's 83 thou, isn't it? Okay. .83 thou. So I would say those fingers are adjusted right. We'll check the other end, but it's just where everything else was so fucking knackered, and the forks were bent. So, like I say, the fact that it actually goes in and out of gear on the adjuster and sticks in neutral is a good sign, isn't it? Pretty good indicator it's right. Insert the thin gauge between the shifter fork and the side of the low gear to determine if the clearance is between 53 thou and 58 thou. Right, 58 thou, bang on. So, I think, like I say, it was probably shimmed up correctly, and it was just everything else was so out of line, it just buggered itself up. Like I say, generally, rule of thumb, if you can select them all in and out the gears just by rotating that, yeah, it's a good sign, isn't it? Then you're always going to get a bit of a tight spot here and there because of the setup. So once you're happy with those and you've measured everything up, that's your shifter forks done. Now take it apart, grease it, and you've got to set this up because you set it in third gear. See that 3? Right, that 3. There's no other notches in that. Has to line up. You see the chamfer on the edge of that tooth there? When that's all in there and I've got to put that back together, all you do is you rotate that till that notched one lines up with your letter 3, and that's correct. If you had the reverse in it, you line it up with the letter R, and that's your setting. Okay? Wonderful. So now I can put it all apart, put all the rest of it back together, and that's ready to go back in the bike then.